What if I told you there's a one-stop shop in Georgia where veterans can walk in wearing boots and walk out completely career ready? From hands-on training to life-changing support, this place is redefining what that transition really means. Today, we're talking to the powerhouse behind it all, the Georgia VECTR Center. We're joined today by Miss Laura. How are you doing today, Laura?
I am doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Can you start by telling us a little bit about what you do down there in Georgia at the VECTR Center and kind of a little bit about your mission?
So, the VECTR Center, our name stands for the Georgia Veterans Education Career Transition Resource Center. So it's a mouthful, but it nicely describes what the VECTR Center is and what we do here. So we were established in 2016 by the state of Georgia, and we were designed to serve transitioning military veterans and their families through career counseling, education, coaching, workforce training and development, community resources and services, and more. So we do a ton. But we focus on our 3 E's, which I mentioned, which is our education, employment, and then also entrepreneurship.
So how does this center collaborate, if at all, with the Georgia Department of Veteran Services?
So we actually have 3 full-time Georgia Department of Veteran Service officers here at the VECTR Center. So veterans can schedule appointments or even do walk-ins and meet with them to file disability claims, to meet and work with them on really anything VA paperwork related. They also help surviving spouses do survivor benefits.
Awesome. So you are a direct relation to the state of Georgia. You could say that, right? With the VA system and how so you're integrated into the state of Georgia and in terms of the VA, correct?
We work with them in the terms of the VA, but we are actually a state of Georgia facility under the technical college system.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm very familiar with the technical college. I actually did some training when I was in high school, as well as had a lot of friends that did some technical training. So very familiar with this. So that's what you're doing down there is unbelievable. But what types of job readiness and training programs do you offer?
So we have 11 programs total. The students can earn college credits and technical college certificates in. The programs are AI-enhanced robotic manufacturing, air conditioning technology, aircraft assembly and repair technician, automation technology, which is a maintenance field in the manufacturing setting. We do Cisco networking, commercial truck driving, electrical construction, electronics technician, logistics management specialist, orthopedic technician, and welding. So we have a wide variety of training and skills that folks can learn here. And then we also have a non-credit class that is focused on active duty military spouses that teaches them in the IT field and gives them that CompTIA Security Plus certification.
Right. So I think what we're talking about here is that we have veterans that are transitioning from the active status, right, and transitioning into civilian life, and they're having trouble relating that training sometimes with state certifications or national certifications that are out there. So what you offer is that you tie that service that they did to now state and national certifications that can help them find jobs, right, at the end of the day. That's kind of what you do. So like, what type of challenges are you finding that our veterans are having during this transitional period?
Not only do we help them with that transition if they're staying in the same field that they're working in. So if someone was, an aircraft mechanic in the military and they're transitioning and they want to stay in that field, we help them get those certifications in that civilian side training. But we work with a lot of our infantry and military police special forces. So what they transition with doesn't always transition well to the civilian sector. So unless they decide to go into the civilian police force, they have to be retrained in something else. So that's a lot of what we focus on, is that training of, as my boss always says, they were taught to shoot things and blow things up. So we're teaching them a skill that they can transition into the civilian sector that will support themselves and their family on the civilian side. You help kind of combat that.
Exactly. And from like a, going back to like a first responder type of thing, you may have some fire training on a Coast Guard boat that you received from the Coast Guard, right? But it doesn't necessarily equate to the state certification that you're trying to receive in as a civilian. So what you're trying to do is help them with that transition and use the skills that they've already learned in the military to then help them get the state certification and sometimes national certification that they need to get a job in the public, civilian sector. And that's awesome. And that's something that I think a lot of veterans struggle with post, deployment, right? It's part of the transition. There's so many veteran service organizations out there that are helping veterans with the transition. You're one of them, and you're doing such a big thing in terms of just helping them get that career readiness and that certification and that training that they need to be successful in the working life, right? And the job world. So first of all, that's incredible. And I think that's just really awesome what you're doing down there. Do you have possibly any success stories that come to your mind when you think of somebody that came into your program, and you could just something that pops into your mind? Tell me a story about a veteran that came to you and is now doing very, very well because of your program.
Several come into my mind, but one in particular, we work very closely actually with the homeless population out of the Carl Vinson VA Medical Center in Dublin. So we have a lot of veterans who will go through their program, and once they complete, they'll transition to us for that skill. And so we actually had one student come, and he did a total of 3 programs with us. So he spent a year with us, earning several different certifications, background fields that meshed very well together and built together. And then he also, I'm going to say at night, because that's about the only time he could do it, went online and did his English and his maths and his histories, and earned his associates. And by the time he finished his year with us, he had a full associate's degree, and he actually got a job teaching in the field. So it was a fantastic,
that's incredible. Yeah,
just path to watch him go through.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the incredible mission that you're doing, is now seeing these veterans come out of the service. They've spent time serving our country, right? They've done the ultimate sacrifice, some of them, and put the time in to being a veteran for our country. And now you're trying to help them get these things that they want, right? Whether it's an associate's degree, whether it's welding, or even their CDL, things like that. I think it's just incredible. And that's, like you said, there's so many success stories that you could pick from, that's such a touching story to hear, because there's probably a lot more, right? We could talk about this for hours in terms of all the success that you guys have had. So Laura, tell me a little bit about how the center aligns its training programs with the current needs of employers and the industries in and around Georgia, but also nationally.
Yeah, so when we are looking at what programs that we are going to offer here at Vector, we look at, of course, what the high needs are in Middle Georgia, what the high needs are in the state, but then also nationwide, because our students, when they're coming to us through SkillBridge from the active duty side, they're going to go home to wherever home is. So we make sure that we're looking at what those high demand fields are. What do they pay? So making sure that while it may be something that's easy to offer accelerated in a 15-week period, we want to make sure they're making enough money to support themselves and their families when they finish with us and can get a job. So we work very closely with our industry partners here in the Middle Georgia area to see, what those high demand fields are, what the entry level pay is for what they're getting trained on. And then we also, like I said, work very closely with our industry partners to know what needs to be offered in the programs. So one of our newest programs is our AI enhanced robotics manufacturing. And that one we received a grant for. We met with our industry partners and built that program from ground up, designed classes that had never been in any of the catalogs taught in the state of Georgia. So we worked with our industry partners, Robins Air Force Base, several different private industry, to decide what they need to be trained in, and built up from there. And then they evaluate it at least every 6 months to make sure that what is being taught and what our students are coming out with is still relevant in the field.
Yeah, right. And I think, some of this technical training plays a huge role in their readiness, right, for the job. A lot of jobs require it. You can't have, you can't drive certain levels of hazardous materials without a certain level of CDL, right, anywhere in the country. So what you're doing is preparing them for the job that basically requires some of these certifications. How do you think some of this training is helping the veteran become more competitive in the workspace and, prepare them to then ultimately get a job within that career?
I mean, the biggest ways are the certificates, like you were talking about, those national certifications. Several of our programs include that. Having that skilled background. So when they're competing with even another veteran coming in who hasn't gone through the training, the technical college side, doesn't have that going on the air conditioning side, the EPA certification that our veterans are coming out of the program with, just builds them up. But then also built into the majority of our programs is what we call job shadowing. So for 2 weeks, they are paired with industry where they are getting to go on the job site to see what it's like. They get to know that. So they're getting that experience not just in our labs, which of course is a controlled environment, but they're actually going out into the real world and seeing it. So they're going into that job interview, that first day on the job, knowing what to expect instead of, having to learn from ground up, like someone who hasn't gone through the program.
Yeah, and I think one of the best things about job readiness or any kind of technical training is being able to make that relationship, right? There's a lot of people that are like, I want to do this, I want to be whatever it may be, but they don't know exactly what that means. So preparing them for how that looks, like if I'm training a paramedic or if I'm training a firefighter and they've never been in a fire, they've never seen the paramedicine, right? The emergency, situations that may come out. You have to put them in that real world experience to get them prepared for whatever that may be. So what you're doing is awesome, right? And it's something that I think is needed, especially for that transitional period between the military and civilian life, and being able to get ready for whatever career they're looking to get into. That real world piece is such a huge piece of it. So that's incredible. I'm going to switch topics here a little bit. You talked early on about that Georgia Vector has a VA disability kind of collaborative part through the state of Georgia. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that is used in your programs and how veterans are able to connect with that?
Yes. So when a student, and students and also the community can utilize the services that the GDVS officers provide, even transitioning military, the GDVS officers can do what's called a BDD claim, benefits delivery at discharge. So while they're coming here for their classes, getting that training, they can also start their disability claims while they're still active duty. And once it's processed, as soon as they transition that first day as a civilian, they've already started receiving those disability payments through the VA. So that's one way that our active duty students can utilize the services through them, but then also any, of course, veterans or spouses who are coming through the program can utilize the services while they're in class. So it's all here on location in one site, so they're not having to jump all over the place, make appointments, try to find the building, miss class because they're having to travel. So it's all right down the hall from where they're getting their training.
I think that's really awesome at what you're doing down there. And what is interesting is that there are so many veteran service organizations out there that are helping with the transitional period. And not only at the Vector Center in Georgia are you helping them with career readiness and training, you're also giving them that help with disability claims and with, the state of Georgia and the VA in general. And I think that's incredible, right? Because that's such a huge aspect of so many people's transition into civilian life. And that's awesome. Beyond training, we talked about it a little bit with the VA stuff, but what other resources or wrapped around services do you offer to support veterans in their transition?
Yeah, so we have quite a few. So we have a community support coordinator who, so not only our students, but our community members, if they are struggling in any way. So struggling with food insecurity, struggling with homelessness, if they've lost their job and they're struggling paying bills or they've had an unexpected bill, she works with them, and then also with the community resource partners in the area to find ways to help them. So getting them connected to a food bank, finding a grant that will help pay to have their car fixed. So that is her sole job, is to work, and she works not only in the Middle Georgia area, but across the state with collecting those resources. We also have 3 what we call success coaches. So they are everything here. So they do everything from resume writing and helping to connect veterans and their spouses to jobs. We do education counseling as far as, so not only if they want to come here to one of our programs, if they come in and they say, I want to be a nurse, we help connect them with or give them the options of the different colleges. We help them with the application, with, their FAFSA to do financial aid, their GI benefits. So we walk them through the entire process of that. We also have VBOC, which is our Veterans Business Outreach Center. So they're actually part of the Small Business Administration, but we house the VBOC for the state of Georgia. So they travel across the state, teaching transitioning service members, veterans, and their spouses how to start a small business. So how to do market research, how to write a business plan, how to look for funding, whether that's a grant or a loan, how to have their business certified as a veteran-owned business. So working with them very closely on, again, just ways to support their family no matter what avenue they're leading through.
Yeah, and honestly, the more we talk, Laura, the more you are doing so much for our nation's veterans, and more importantly, in the Georgia area. But all of this stuff, all of these certifications and this training, and it's a national scale. And you were even saying in a brief conversation before that you don't have to live in Georgia to come to your center. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, you do not have to be a Georgia resident. We can help virtually. Folks can come in and take classes. We do have limited housing, but we do have some housing for veterans coming in from outside of the area that we can help with.
Yeah, and that's incredible. That's honestly incredible. Are there specific industries or career fields that you see are having a higher demand overall for our veterans transitioning?
Anything in what I'm going to call the construction field. So that HVAC, welding, electrical, are just growing with just, housing across the nation is growing, but I know here in the Middle Georgia area, we are building new structures, new housing, all the time. So that's a big one. Also in the IT field, we're definitely seeing a lot of growth. The healthcare field, a lot of veterans are trying to, or I should say transitioning service members and veterans are trying to get into the healthcare field, but then also in the manufacturing field. So both on the maintenance side, but then also on the AI robotic side. So learning how to program and run the robots, which, and I say manufacturing, it goes into agriculture as well. So we've seen a huge boom in that field, in that demand for training.
All right, looking ahead, Laura, do you have any new programs or newly initiated programs that have come out at the center?
I've talked a little bit about the AI enhanced robotics program. We just closed out our 2nd year with that program. It has been fantastic, and we've been able to nicely cross-train a lot of our students who've gone through that with our automation. So the students are learning how to program the robots, the machinery, but also fix it, which again, talk about, that leg up on someone else in the field. Being able to do both has solidified a lot of our students getting that employment. Another new initiative that we have started as a partnership with Robins Air Force Base is our aircraft assembly and repair technician program. So that's been a really big one. with helping to get our veterans back into the federal workforce. So working with the ALCs, but then also in the civilian workforce, it's a large demand field as well. And then I mentioned it a little bit, was our military spouse training program. So we started, and we just started our second cohort last week. So it's training military spouses in the field of IT. And the idea behind that one is when an active duty spouse has to move installations, PCSs, the spouse has, of course, follows, and a lot of times their job doesn't transition with them. So we wanted to do something and get some kind of training going where in the IT field, they can get a federal job that no matter what installation the spouse is PCS to, that non-active duty spouse has a job that follows nicely with them.
And that's incredible. And I think we should definitely take a moment to highlight that you're not only helping veterans, but you're helping their spouses as well. And that's such a huge part of the transitional period and what you're doing at the Georgia VECTR Center. That's incredible, Laura. Thank you for sharing all of this. As we wrap up here, how can people get a hold of you or maybe support your mission as we move forward?
Yeah, so the biggest ways for anyone who's local to the area, partnering with us for job shadowing, becoming that industry partner, supporting our students is a huge one. We're always looking for industry partners who can take on. Again, it's a 2-week commitment. And then hiring the students, of course. We're always looking for companies who want to hire veterans, hire their dependents, donating your time to us. So we also, one thing I hadn't mentioned before, but we offer free workshops all the time. We typically have at least 2 to 4 per week. That's anything from financial awareness to how to use a computer, how to use your smartphone. So, someone coming in and offering their time to do that. For those local or not local who aren't able to do either of those two, monetary donations is another way to support us. We have a foundation account that we utilize for student scholarships, for community support, to help with our students' housing, because we want them to be able to stay in the local area without coming out of pocket and taking that burden off of them. But honestly, most important, spread the word. Spread the word about VECTR and the resources that we provide so that we can get the word out to as many veterans and their family as possible.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for telling us what you're doing down there in Georgia. We really appreciate everything that you're doing for our nation's veterans and their spouses. And we look forward to hearing more about what you're doing and maybe some future interviews, ? That would be fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. To all of our viewers, I'm Andrew Wolfgang. Stay mission ready.